The moment Leonor realized her fate. The chamber is still. Red velvet, gold trim. The Spanish coat of arms suspended above a room designed not for comfort, but for continuity. Cameras fixed. Parliament assembled. History present. At the center stands Princess Leonor de Borbón y Ortiz, Princess of Asturias. 18 years old. Composed beyond her age. The Constitution opened before her. In that silence, something settles. For those born into succession, realization does not arrive as shock, it arrives as acceptance of a duty that was always waiting. The moment is often misunderstood. Observers search for visible emotion. A tremor in the voice. A pause that betrays hesitation. But heirs are not trained for revelation. They are trained for absorption. Realization, in a constitutional monarchy, is gradual, layered, quiet. It begins long before the oath. It begins in childhood corridors where portraits of former sovereigns line the walls not as decoration, but as instruction. It continues through carefully calibrated appearances, national ceremonies, state visits where the heir stands half a step behind the monarch, close enough to be seen, distant enough to be shielded. And then, one day, the distance disappears. Here is the first reframing. The moment Leonor realized her fate was not the day she understood she would be queen. That knowledge existed from birth. The moment was when she understood that the institution would no longer buffer her from its full gravity. That shift is invisible to the public. This is the living thread of continuity. Spain's monarchy has endured restoration, abdication, scrutiny, recalibration. It survives not by spectacle, but by discipline. The heir must embody that discipline before assuming authority. When Leonor swore loyalty to the Constitution before the Cortes Generales, she crossed a constitutional threshold. The oath was required by law. The composure was required by history. National identity is woven into these rituals. At 5 minutes into this unfolding recognition, the phrase returns with heavier resonance. It is not ornamental, it is structural. From that day forward, her presence is no longer symbolic apprenticeship. It is constitutional assurance. Markets read it. Political leaders note it. Allies register it quietly. In Washington, analysts observe the stability of Spain's succession as part of broader NATO coherence. In London, where the choreography of heirs is studied with precision, the discipline appears familiar. Canada and Australia, navigating their own constitutional monarchies, recognize the balancing act between tradition and democratic legitimacy. Germany, shaped by a different constitutional history, views the ritual as a study in symbolic authority constrained by law. The message across capitals is measured, continuity remains intact. But within that continuity lies an unspoken tension. At 8 minutes into understanding this transformation, a deeper mystery surfaces. Does realization alter identity, or does it compress it? An heir must integrate personal instinct with institutional expectation. Too much individuality risks instability. Too little risks detachment. The Spanish crown cannot afford either extreme. Leonor's training accelerated in subtle ways after her oath. Military instruction, strategic education, structured visibility. Each step signals readiness not for celebration, but for eventual responsibility as head of state and supreme commander of the armed forces. Continuity is not abstract here, it is embodied in visible presence. Around the midpoint of this evolution, institutional strain becomes perceptible. Spain's political landscape remains fragmented. Public trust in traditional authority fluctuates. Generational skepticism toward inherited roles is real. The monarchy's answer is not debate. It is preparation. Realization, then, is not emotional awakening. It is operational clarity. There is a point, near 14 minutes into this broader assessment, where acceptance becomes irreversible. The heir no longer contemplates the crown as distant future. She calibrates daily conduct against it. That is the point of no return. From there, every gesture carries implication. Every silence communicates discipline. Every international appearance becomes rehearsal for sovereignty. The weight does not crush. It stabilizes. Power is structural, not emotional. Duty outweighs desire. The survival of the institution is the ultimate prize. At 19 minutes into this arc, another layer emerges. The global environment is not static. Economic pressures, security challenges, rapid information cycles that magnify missteps instantly. A future monarch must navigate not only ceremonial duties, but symbolic diplomacy in an era of scrutiny. The United States values predictability in allies. The United Kingdom understands the burden of modern monarchy under digital observation. Canada and Australia weigh the relevance of hereditary leadership against evolving civic identity. Germany measures constitutional restraint with analytical distance. All are watching not for charisma, but for steadiness. The moment of realization, then, is less about emotion and more about alignment. Leonor aligns herself visibly with constitutional order. She aligns her trajectory with military service, with formal education, with public restraint. The crown does not ask whether she feels ready. It asks whether she appears ready. For those born into succession, realization does not arrive as shock, it arrives as acceptance of a duty that was always waiting. Acceptance changes posture. It sharpens speech. It removes ambiguity. And yet, uncertainty remains. The monarchy's endurance depends on public belief in its relevance. Belief cannot be commanded. It must be sustained through credibility. The heir's realization is only the first stage. The greater test will come when symbolic authority must navigate unforeseen strain. A constitutional crisis. A generational shift. A challenge to inherited roles. History does not announce its timing. As the chamber empties and the echoes of applause fade, the image remains, a young woman standing steady beneath centuries of expectation. The weight of the crown. By the final utterance, it no longer feels dramatic. It feels settled, not imposed, accepted. She does not step away from it. She steps into it, and somewhere beyond the ceremony, beyond the visible milestones, the true measure of that acceptance waits. Because realization is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of accountability. Spain stands at the edge of a future not yet defined, its monarchy recalibrated, its heir prepared, its continuity intact, for now. What history will require of her next remains unwritten. And the crown, patient and immovable, continues to wait.